Guys, what's up here? Today's video, I'm going to talk about the Xbox, and more to say, I'm going to talk about like each Xbox I've ever played growing up. As I mentioned in my last video with the GameCube, how as a child I used to own several consoles. I used to have the GameCube, a PlayStation 2, a DS, an Xbox, and I think that's about it. So this video is going to be a little more about the Xbox, and I will get to the PlayStation 2 video later on if I ever get around to come to that. But suffice to say, to summarize it, my relationship with the Xbox is both a weird mixed love relationship because if you look at it technological wise, the Xbox has been like slowly getting improving each moment regards to from its very foundation to the current one today. And the I believe this is the eighth or ninth video game generation. So the Series X is the current one, and that one is like, as far as technological wise for consoles, is like the strongest specs with an SSD card, and that's just amazing to think about it. So I'm gonna go in chronological order with each Xbox iteration, what my thoughts are, the games I played on it, and how much of an impact it lasts for today. So let's start with the original Xbox, which released in November 15th of 2001. So this is right when the modern age began and video games were slowly getting into mainstream. The games I remember playing on the original Xbox were mostly Halo because that was just the launch title with it. And technical wise, the Xbox, the original one, was really big and bulky, especially the controller. The original controller was the Duke controller. It was a controller made for ogres and trolls and orcs because it is like really big, and we humans are accustomed to anything that is within our grasp size, like say like look at the Xbox controller today, like that would be a really perfect standard edition. But the Duke controller, I remember when I first saw it, I didn't pay much attention to it. I just realized how cool it was, the neon green and black, and just how futuristic it was because this was Microsoft's first official gaming console, and to like play on such device is just like perplexing and stellar, and especially when you boot it up, that like classic intro of this green microfusion like cell growing rapidly and it just expands out into like the Xbox logo is just so relaxing and satisfying for some reason. Like, I don't know about you, but when it comes to presentation, Xbox really does take the cake from it, other than like the PlayStation 2's like really loud ear piercing stardom noise. Like, I'll never forget it as well. But yeah, besides Halo on there, other games I played on the original Xbox were, I think, Battlefront 2. Yeah, I think it was Battlefront 2 because I remember I had a copy of that. And there were other games as well, Republic Commando, um, Halo 2, as it will launch later on in 2004. I'm trying to remember what else. I really can't tell because that was just like an early generation of the first Xbox, and my mind was more vivid on GameCube rather than Xbox, but it was also part of my childhood as well because my brother really got me into the Xbox. He got me into Halo, and it was just like absolutely phenomenal along with like the games I grew up playing. So with that aside, how will it last today? I'd say today it probably aged and didn't age really well because I remember like 2 years ago when I had a speech class in my last year semester of college. I did a formal speech on the Xbox and its presentation. Like it's very upcoming, and I went into details talking about like the specs, how powerful they were compared to the PlayStation 2, what the attention to was, the cultural, if it like popularized with like four player split screen. Like usually when you think about like somebody coming to over to your house to play like Halo or something, you usually like imagine an Xbox because that was like the very principle of couch co-op when everyone could just plug in a controller and they could just play the games. But yeah, I think it really is a relic of its time. I mean, 2001 was a very different era of gaming and also internet culture as well. So 4 years later, that's when the Xbox 360 came out, and from what I recall, I was really excited because not only was it like a new console, but it also brought Xbox Live, which was like this whole stellar world. And Xbox Live was like the first ever mainstream like console internet connection thing, along the lines of like PSN and all that. And I was just really excited because I knew that if I got my hands on a 360, I could go online and play with like randoms or whatever. And so I remember very vividly, I think it was 2006 or 2007, I got the Xbox 360 um, box, and it came with two launch titles for it on like a one video game cartridge. That was Forza Motorsport 2 and Marvel's Ultimate Alliance, which by the way, both games are really good. Like those I remember those two vividly just because of I just got my Xbox 360 that day. And it wasn't until like later on when I got like Halo 3 that it was like literally the pinnacle of gaming, at least on terms of Microsoft side. And then yeah, like your stellar competition with PlayStation 3. But anyway, games for that console. Oh boy, I'd say from 2007 to 2013, so 6 years, I would get a lot of games for the Xbox 360, both like double A and triple A games. So anything from like Call of Duty, World of War to um, the Orange Box to I'm trying to remember what else I got. Lost Planet, yeah, that was a title I remember playing a lot of. I mean, just like seeing the 360 like green and white color scheme was very eye catching. It was very iconic. But for me, I think what stood out from the Xbox 360 was just like the amount of friends I've made online, the amount of hours I put into these games, the like learning how online capabilities function and how you use the live service. And oh my god, the 360 dashboard was just like so good. Like UI design, it was really easy. It was really easy to navigate. It was simple. It was straight in the middle, so you didn't have your eyes averting to anywhere else trying to find it. You had like backlogs or tabs to keep in track, like friends, gaming, achievements, music, which ironically I didn't know at the time, but I think this was the first console you could ever like plug in your iPod or your iPhone to play music, because I remember watching my brother do it, and that was just like confusing to me. I was like, I didn't know you could play music on your 360. Like that was just really weird and new to me as a youngling because I didn't understand how the capabilities of the 360 work. But yeah, decision wise on Microsoft, this was both a weird mixed confusion or mixed weird reaction with the way Microsoft handled the Xbox, because they started introducing live subscriptions, which is I probably that's like not a thing prevalent until like WoW came in, and then Blizzard started charging people like $15 a month to play WoW. But for Microsoft, it was like you had like all these plans. Like if you wanted gold, yeah, I remember the live subscriptions had tiers. So you had silver and gold, and silver was like sort of like an inferior tier for gold, which means you can still play like online games, but you can't like talk with anybody if I misremember it. And then gold is just like the standard definition of online subscription. So if you wanted to play online with your friends and keep up to date, you had to like subscribe to gold, and it was like what, like 20 a month or 60 a year. So financial wise, I always had to like ask my mom to give me gold for Xbox Live, and there was just like some times where I didn't have gold, so I had to play like these games by myself, just growing up. There was also Microsoft Points, which is both a new thing and a divisive mechanic because I didn't realize how really financial business Microsoft was when it came to Microsoft points. They were basically saying, "Hey, we're gonna sell you these like hard currencies, and you can use those points to purchase whatever you want on the Xbox marketplace, whether it's like add-ons, DLCs, avatar skins, etc." And so that was like a weird move, but also like a bad financial decision because they really tricked you into spending a lot more than you should have. So if you wanted like a new game, it was like I can't believe I can't forget what the prices were for like a new game with Microsoft points. I think it was like 2,000 or something, or 1,800 points, but they only sold like 1,500. So if you wanted to get like that 18,000, you had to spend like a 1,500, which is like $15, and then an extra like 500, just $5. So that would be like, yeah, that's 20. But anyway, I don't know really too much about that. I just remember it was around, and it just it didn't bother me growing up. And now like looking back on it, I see that their principles were really more on financial and lucrative profits. Another thing that I remember most vividly about the Xbox 360 were the avatars. The avatars were really a self-personal thing, so it was really how you want your friends to see who you are, and you can just make like the most absurd like janky avatar ever, or you could just make it yourself, even though most of the time the customizations for it were kind of like lackluster, but it was what they had at the time. And thinking now, Microsoft avatars today, I mean, they're still there with the new generation consoles. It's just they're not as prevalent or like impactful to culture as anyone else can see. So yeah, that's just like kind of the basics of the 360. Unless if I missed something, let me know in the comments below, like if I missed like a critical point about it. But I just remember like some of these like aspects about the 360. And then the next generation came in 2013. So this was the seventh generation. Yeah. So the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, they came out. It was really revolutionary because they were able to have more good specs and more like faster boot faster systems in a way, like fast as in like it performed a lot quicker than loading up a game. So if you like load up a game on the 360, it would take like a few minutes, but if you load up on the Xbox One, it would take like only a minute. I remember most vividly from that. I was in middle school. It was a rainy day. I went to GameStop. I got my first Xbox One from my parents. And the first game I ever played on it was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And that was really stellar. I really enjoyed that. And then like there was this year and a half period where the games I would get for Xbox One were really kind of a mixed bag because you had like Call of Duty Ghost, you had Battlefield 4, you had Thief, you had Titanfall. I remember that. Oh yeah, one last thing I forgot from the 360 era, the Kinect. So my thoughts on the Kinect were it was okay. It was kind of weird to have a camera in front of you most of the time. I'm gonna go back to Xbox One for a bit. Um, but yeah, the Kinect was a really like sort of like unnecessarily feature for the 360 because it was kind of like a little camera, which may or may not have spyware on it, and it was just trying to like they were just trying to innovate or play catch up with the Nintendo's Wii because the Wii for that time sold a lot of copies, especially Wii Sports. That was their hotcakes game, and so having Microsoft made a Connect and then the PlayStation Move was kind of like a weird, innovative video game thing because these companies are really trying to do like motion based devices and try to like see like who can outsell the other. And despite like the design of it, I did have a lot of fun with the Kinect because one of the games I remember playing a lot was Dance Central, and it was made by Harmonix, the same people behind Rock Band and Guitar Hero. That game demonstrates very well the Kinect movement. But other than that, yeah, it was a weird and mixed time. And then this also ties into the Xbox One because Microsoft tried selling these bundles with the Kinect, like a much more improved rectangular Kinect, and that really caused a lot of uproar. And although it was kind of a bothersome thing, it really didn't bother me that much because I would just use the Connect for like for like communications because if you didn't have a really good headset that literally that device was like the only thing you would use to talk with your friends, and it would just echo in the background because the Connect's like audio like mic was like a little inferior to like an ordinary Xbox headset. So, and you can also troll people with it. So if somebody was playing with the Kinect, you could just like yell into the mic like Xbox turn off, and then their Xbox would turn. I'm sorry, that was just hilarious to like think about it because I remember that really did happen with a few people. The freaking Xbox Connect would just like control your system and your communications microphone. But yeah, I mean 2004, 2013 to 2017, that was kind of a weird era for Xbox, even though they were trying to really big out the big games like Halo and still and like all these other exclusive IPs. And it wasn't until like December 2017 when I got the Xbox One X, which is supposed to be, which at the time was like the most advanced and really good console ever. It was really powerful. They put a lot of emphasis on the specs. I don't know too much about technicalities, so I'm just gonna assume whatever. Yeah, it was like a lot faster. It was more suitable, and you didn't have to like need the stupid bulky power supply line to plug it in because being keep in mind with the 360 and the Xbox One, the plugins that one of them was a power box or whatever you call it, and that took up like a lot of space. And when they got rid of that for the Xbox One X, and that was like a huge improvement. That was like a huge feedback that everybody gave. And my thoughts about it, it was just I was just basically just stepping up my gaming platform. I wanted to upgrade every year, every ever the chance whenever I could get, so I can like keep up to the games because at this point games were becoming much more powerful. They were becoming ambitious. They were like more grand than the last gen they were on, and so yeah, that was just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a tricky situation for me to describe the Xbox One and the One X because I just remember vividly like playing the games. Like I didn't think about the consoles at the time. Like I just wanted the consoles because I wanted something really hard and like really powerful just to play the games on. And I really didn't complain much. In fact, I enjoyed a lot of memories growing up, like going from like high school to college, just playing those Xboxes. And then it wasn't until 2020 with the start of the eighth generation that they released the Series X and S. And good God, this was a really rough time because, okay, so keep in mind, there are two things that have impacted sales for the Series X and S. One, COVID was around, so quarantine, so everybody was staying at home. They weren't really sure like what the next games were, and what were like the next games to release with these consoles. Like, what did Microsoft and PlayStation have for these big consoles? Like, I certainly want to remember like what one of them being like Call of Duty Cold War when I got my Series S, and you had to like wait a year until Halo Infinite came out. But it was still cool to go back and play older games via backwards compatible, which by the way is one of the most in it's one of the most like genius and accessible moves made by Microsoft, because who doesn't love going back to a few generation games and playing them on your modern day console? I mean, that's what PC was literally built off of. With PC game, you could like literally play any game from like any era, whether it was like 1998 or 2008 or 2018. Like it was just like for Microsoft to do that starting with the 360, this is when they did the backwards compatibility. It really was a smart and ingenious way to have people like keep their games or preserve them and not have to like buy like older consoles just to be able to play those games, you know. But at the same time, I know there's like people out there who are really authentic and they really want to play the games for which they were released at the time. So like, you know, i.e. Halo CE on the original Xbox. I'm like, yeah, that was like a really authentic and relic experience. But for them to still be able to keep that is like a really smart move, because now you can play original Xbox games on the Series X and S, which is like phenomenal and crazy to think about. Like I could play Republic Commando on my Series X at like at a, well, some of these games they're still capped at their like native 30 FPS or whatever, or the resolutions, but you know, sometimes Microsoft will frame rate boost to like 360 games. So I can play like Fallout 3 at 60 FPS at 4K resolution. I mean, that's just phenomenal. But yeah, anyway, launch for that. The second factor you had to consider of how impactful their sales were scalpers. I absolutely despised the scalpers because you couldn't buy a Series X or a PlayStation 5 at the time because some guy would go on GitHub, retrieve some code to get a bot and say, "Hey, bot, when they put like new stocks for the Xbox Series X or S or PlayStation 5, I want you to buy it immediately in the instant, in the blink of an eye, at the speed of light, faster than our human brains could ever comprehend." And so the bot would be like, okay. And so those people would freaking hoard all the copies and then sell them at ridiculous prices, like $500 or $600. Like that's just unfair. Like that is really scummy to people to do. And so at that Christmas in 2020, I really wanted the Series X, but I had to like either get a Series S at the moment or wait for a few months and get the Series X. But I stupidly chose Series S because I just wanted to see how the new SSD card was in the console. And despite it being like a lot 10 times significantly faster, there was a downfall because the Series S was digital only. It had no disc slot. So if you had physical games you wanted to put in, tough luck, champ. You're gonna have to buy them online via DRM, which is absolutely like insane. Thankfully, later in December of 2021, I finally got a Series X, and I'm still happy that I own one. So it would have been about like 3 years now since I've owned one, and I don't have any regrets. I don't have any like financial backburns or port or like anything resentful. I'm really content on where I am with my games, and right now I wish for Microsoft to do two things. Number one, preserve the games that people are buying via physical discs, because this is a threat right now. This is a major concern in the video game industry, is video game preservation. You know how in my last video how I said the Dolphin emulator is okay because it's okay to preserve video games? That's how it should be followed. For Microsoft, they should not erase the existence of physical games. They should allow them to still keep coming, because people buy physical games for a reason. They don't want to deal with the DRM crap because they want to physically own the game. If I, as a consumer, buy a game, I have the rights to do whatever I want with that game. I could buy it, I could throw it away, I could leave it in the desk for like 5 years. It is my responsibility and my choice to do it. DRM is a major concern and something that should be tread lightly on thin ice, because even though it exists, and I know I own a lot of games on digital just for the sake of convenience of being able to play them, I'd say it should not be taken seriously, or it should be taken seriously, sorry, and it should be handled with care, because as we're going into the digital age of video games, we should be more thoughtful and speaking out loud about physical games and physical media, because these companies, these big monopoly companies, think just because we own digital things means we own them. That is not the case. No, you do not own a digital game. You own the license to the digital game, but if that game's live service goes off, you can't play anymore. That is such a bummer. Like, that's such a downfall. So again, I emphasize anyone that wants to buy new video games, I recommend you buy them on physical disc so you could preserve them and play them anytime. That's what I do with every game that I want. I buy them physically so I can go back and play them anytime I want, because I really love those games. I really enjoy them. I want to keep them. But yeah, as for the certainty of the future of the next Xbox console, I'm not really sure what to keep in mind. So as long as there's games ready to be launched with it and really fun ones, I think that's what really matters. It doesn't like specs and all that. I could care less because I know it's just going to be faster or anything, or like a lot more innovative. But yeah, this has been my thoughts on the evolution of the Xbox and what my thoughts are playing for each device. And oh, that was a huge mouth breather and a weird journey. It was a weird trip because the Xbox to me was a staple of its time, and it's a really device that I still use to this very day. And I don't hold any resentment against it or like PlayStation 2. I'll get to that video sometime this week. But yeah, it's just been a crazy trip. And if anyone has like any stories or comments to share down below, let me know. Tell me about your thoughts with the original Xbox, the 360, One, One X, whatever. And so yeah, that about does it. I hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you out. Peace.